A mentor once told me, if you feel stuck, it's because you don't like any of the options that you are aware of. And that has really stuck with me. Really? This early in the video, Nate? Howdy everyone, Nate here, welcome back. I'm taking a somewhat lighter-hearted approach to something that can be deeply unsettling or even paralyzing to many people. I also speak from very personal experience as we talk through this. What is stuck? I see it as the inability to move forward, usually a feeling manifesting in writer's block, self-deprecation, or other more nefarious ways. One thing that I'm certain of, in my own unprofessional, non-certified opinion here, is that if stuck is allowed to remain in your life, it will almost always have negative results. So returning to that quote from my mentor, if you feel stuck, it's because you don't like any of the options that you are aware of. With that in mind, what is the solution? When we put it that simply, it seems as if we're able to put a pretty clear answer on it. Number one, become more aware. Simply adding new ideas or potential options to our realm of awareness can be very freeing. And two, it makes sense as we've begun to loosen those things up to begin taking some actions. Let me tell you a story from my own life. A number of years ago, as a result of a afterwards botched apprenticeship, I was seeking employment. And I remember walking into a certain local bakery cafe chain, being interviewed on the spot, and the owner saying to me, "Hey, how are you with mornings?" My reply being, "I think I'm okay with that." "Great, you start tomorrow morning at 4:30 a.m. And what followed for me was a whirlwind introduction into the world of sandwich making. Not very glamorous, but I was proud of my craft. Every day, on hundreds of repetitions, each day I would pull out some pieces of bread, I would lay the cheese, the meat, the lettuce, tomato, onion, and then sometimes other accoutrements like avocado. I got so good at it, the moment an order for a sandwich came up, I could complete that sandwich in under 30 seconds. Which, funny side note about avocado here, I never quite understood why it costs so much to add it to things until I worked at that restaurant. You know how much labor cost is involved with adding an avocado to something? But back to the story. I became very good at what I was doing. So much so that I was on track to have my own establishment. I was training to become a store owner. I was going to have my very own franchise and potential future franchises with this establishment. However, I started to notice something about myself as I continued along this path of training to become a store owner. In my day-to-day life of running and managing the store that I was currently in, I would excuse myself to take a bathroom break in the single-stall, lockable door bathrooms that that restaurant had. And more often, I'd find myself going in there, closing and locking the door, and then just sitting on the floor. I know, it sounds gross, and it probably was, except that I also cleaned the bathrooms in that restaurant. But I would sit on the floor, and I would just feel things that I couldn't quite describe at the time. And I recall this happening more and more often and realizing maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe this isn't what I want to be doing. So as I look back on the now somewhat muddy details of that sequence of events, I believe it was on one of these bathroom breaks that a new thought entered my mind. I was pursuing this path because I thought it was the best path. But looking back in retrospect, it was the only path that I was aware of. Was it a good path for the right person? Yes, it was. It was going to be making a ton of money. But life and my interaction with the life I had at that time had a way of pointing out maybe this isn't the only thing that's possible. So at that time, I made a choice that ultimately started the sequence of dominoes that led me to, well, right here with you. You see, the way I look at this, there are roughly two kinds of changes that you or I could be making when we find ourselves in a stuck situation. We can make one or two big changes, or we can make many small changes sustained over a period of time. And often, real change and getting unstuck looks like a combination of those things. Many of us, and perhaps you watching this, if this video found you, find ourselves on a treadmill of content. And what we may not realize is that there are a lot of options for that treadmill. I could turn down the speed of the treadmill. I could turn up the speed of the treadmill. I could hop on one foot, or I could even step off of the treadmill and find a different exercise machine that fits me better. A big choice could look like stopping something that played a really big role up to that point, or it could look like starting something that you had thought about doing for a long time and it was finally time. If we go the multiple small choices route, it looks basically the same as the big choices, just smaller. Also, as I was talking with a client earlier today, I was informed that if I ever skip inviting people to boop the like button, then they would be very upset. Although I'm not convinced that some other people might be very relieved if I stopped it, but I guess those people can stick to their generic smash the like button if they like. We've talked about big choices versus small choices, but there's another angle here that I have been considering more and more recently. And that has to do with our thinking. Big picture or smaller picture. You see, traditionally, the self-help advice is to think long-term, to think in terms of the big picture. But I don't know if I'm the only one that find myself in a situation where if I'm feeling like this, all of my options are right in front of my face, and this is all I can see, the last thing I can do is think big picture. And not only that, but sometimes I am aware of bigger picture, but I will find myself feeling guilty because it feels like the gap between where I am and these big picture things is simply too large. If you're anything like me, sometimes with my thinking, I'm not able to, in a moment, focus on the big picture. Sometimes with my awareness, I have to consciously, intentionally choose to think smaller for a time. Sometimes I have to say to myself, no matter how I am feeling right now, I'm just going to take the next best choice. Tomorrow can think of itself, but right now, I am just going to do what is current now. The option to get unstuck here is to pause and reconsider, considering all the options that I am currently aware of and maybe adding a few new ones, even if they're absurd. As an example, let's say you're feeling stuck in a rut with your videos. Would it be possible for you to film your next video while sitting outside, touching grass? We use that as a joke, but one of the best ways that I have found personally to get myself unstuck or to help clients get unstuck is to say, whatever the formula is you're doing right now, try shaking it up. And sometimes the big thinking here is picking that thing, the thing that you know you've wanted to do for so long, and actually doing it sooner. Whatever excuses or very valid logical reasons that you've had for not taking steps toward that passion or that thing you've wanted, well, just set them aside for a moment and just try. Because when you or I add new options to our awareness and take some steps in that direction, invariably, new opportunities and new horizons open up. I also feel as if someone watching this needed to hear that today. And if that's you, I appreciate you taking the time with me to have this experience together. Or if it's someone you know, I appreciate you sharing this with them. Because you have so many options available to you right now. And one more thing, I wanted to mention another video that I made. Every YouTuber I spoke with, every content creator I spoke with, I could ask these questions. The answers to which have really changed many creators' direction. So I wanted to direct you to that video so you can watch it after this and answer those questions for yourself.